Hello, and welcome to my October budget recap. We spent the last half of the month homesick because my daughter had a fever and a little bit of a runny nose. And I also had a little bit of a stuffy nose and a bit of a cough. But I'm very fortunate that I've had the paid time off available for work, that I could take these days off when I needed to. But it would have been even better if I was able to do some work from home because I had everything I needed to work from home. I just didn't have any work that I was able to do. But this has really reiterated how important it is for me to pay off all of our debts so that I can have some freedom with my work to either work less or search for another job that allows me to work from home. So October was a 3 paycheck month for me, and that really helped for working towards our savings goal. So now let's get into the budget. Okay, so where I first left off, we were a bit negative in our budget, but it was just a day or so before payday, so we didn't actually go negative. But now let's finish out the final budget with our last 2 paychecks. One of them was actually 1 cent less than the other ones. So that brought my paychecks to just over $10,000, which was almost $20 more than we budgeted for. And I'm not exactly sure why that was. But my husband's paycheck, that was exactly as we budgeted for, another $2,179.66. And then for interest this month, it was less than usual because I don't know if I mentioned earlier that our high yield savings account that was paying us 5.25% in interest dropped down to 1.15. So we're not earning quite as much interest, but I think that I have found a high yield savings account that I'm okay with using. It's a federal credit union. They're offering 4%. And so I like federal credit unions because they focus more on their local community and lending to the local community. So hopefully this month I'll be moving my savings over to that, but I think it's going to be a slow process because my bank only lets me transfer $5,000 a day. So we have, I think, $43,000 to move from our current bank to the new account. So it'll take a while. But our interest that we earned this month was $91.95, which actually is still really good. So I'm not complaining. Rewards, we redeemed $25 at the beginning of the month, and that's it. And then no refunds and no other income came in this month. Although my daughter did get, I think, $20 for her birthday from one of my aunts, but that was in cash and I didn't deposit it, so it doesn't get tracked. Now moving on to our debts. Our mortgage was paid at the beginning of the month, and then we had a second car payment come out. I think it was just last week. And then with my 2 other paychecks, I paid my retirement account loan. So in total this month, our debts were $4,418, leaving us with just over $10,000 for the rest of our budget. So moving on to our fixed expenses, we had our utilities come out. They were $167.23, which we got a little bit of a discount for the same reason we were getting it over the summer, where they give us a $12.50 discount for allowing them to cycle our air conditioning. This was the last month for that. And then we also got a little bit of a discount because I think I mentioned somewhere that with our budget billing, sometimes we pay too much and they hold that money, and sometimes we pay too little and so we owe them that money. And I think at the beginning of the year, we had overpaid, and so we earned some interest on that, which they just now credited us back on this bill. I think that's what happened. They don't actually tell us. But we had paid our car insurance, our internet, and then my Acorn subscription came out on the last day of the month. And then daycare, we had 2 more weeks, so we ended up paying that $1,200. Although my daughter was home the whole last week of daycare, so we paid $300 for her to be there for a couple hours on Monday before she went to the doctor's. But oh well. I thought I was only going to pay $40 for the FSA, but they took it out all 3 times, so that was $60. And I think that might mean that in November they're only going to take it out once instead of twice, because technically this last paycheck, the pay date was November 1st, even though it hit my account on the 30th. So I track it as part of October, but I think work tracks it as a November paycheck. And so I think I mentioned in my daily spending that we spent a lot from our FSA recently. We've been sick a lot, needed to get cough medicine. My daughter went to the doctors to get antibiotics. And so we ended up spending $141.22 so far from the FSA. I still have more reimbursements to submit because we're trying to spend all of that money before the end of the year. For my husband's Roth IRA, we didn't budget to contribute any, and so we didn't contribute any, and of course we didn't spend any. For my Acorns after-tax brokerage account, I had my reoccurring $5 monthly contribution come out at the beginning of the month, and then towards the end of the month, I had a roundup of $5.06, bringing my total contribution to my Acorns account $10.06, and I didn't spend any from that. For our emergency fund, we didn't budget to contribute any, and so we didn't, and then we didn't spend any. For the new roof savings, after my first transfer Tuesday, I had contributed $500, and then I think over the next 3 weeks I had contributed another $2,500. But now that the budget is final, and I think you'll see this after my last transfer Tuesday, which I will contribute the remaining amount for this budget. So we will end up contributing $6,330 to the new roof, and we haven't spent any yet. So we're not actually getting billed for this roof. We took out a no-interest loan, and so there's no payments and no interest until I think the date is April 2nd, 2025. So we will begin making payments towards that debt probably in late March, just to make sure that they go through on time. But for now, we're not making any payments. We don't have anything due. And we should have that amount saved up very soon. And then for my daughter's 529 education plan, I contributed $415 during one of my Transfer Tuesdays, which was exactly what we budgeted. And I also mentioned that I initiated the rollover from the Fidelity account into our state account. And so hopefully that should get done soon. It was a whole process of printing out the account rollover form and mailing it in, so it might take a couple of weeks or months. We didn't spend anything from that account, although we could. You don't have to wait for college for using the 529, although that's typically what it's designed for. You can actually use it for any kind of education expenses. We're planning on probably college, although you can also roll over the 529 into a Roth IRA, at least some of it, so that also might be a possibility. Okay, so moving on to our sinking funds. I already contributed $1,000 to home. However, we ended up spending more for a water filtration system to help protect our new appliances because we have a lot of sediment in our water because we have well water. So we ended up spending $202.60, which unfortunately makes our home sinking fund negative again. Every time I bring it back positive, we end up taking it negative. So I'm really hoping that we don't have any more home expenses for the rest of the year because this is getting a bit ridiculous. So for groceries, we budgeted $375, ended up contributing $375, and by the end of the month, with all of my husband's extra grocery trips, spending, it was always like $7. $7 or $15 every time we went to the grocery store. But we ended up spending $594.80 in groceries. So we're still positive in that sinking fund. So that's good. And that covers where we're negative in the home sinking fund. For car and gas, we budgeted $175 and contributed $175. And then I had to renew my car registration for 2 years. And I think I may have gotten another tank of gas. I'm not sure. We ended up spending $277.64 in car and gas. For gifts and donations, we budgeted $20, contributed $20, and we haven't spent any. So this will leave us with almost $600 that we can spend on Christmas gifts this year for the family, which is nice. I have 2 nieces and a nephew on my side, and my husband, we have 2 nephews and a niece, so we will be buying presents for all of them this year. And so that's a pretty good sinking fund that we've built up all year long for the gifts. For restaurants, we budgeted $20 and contributed $20, but we haven't spent any from that this month, so that was good. We're trying not to spend at restaurants very often this year while we're trying to save up for our roof. For pets, budgeted $70, contributed $70, and ended up spending $27.96. This was for wood pellets for their litter boxes. I think my husband bought 4 bags, which should hopefully last us, with what we already had, it should hopefully last us an entire year. For baby, we budgeted $100 with the intention of spending it probably for her birthday. We contributed $100, and we actually didn't spend any money on her birthday at all. We didn't buy her any gifts or anything. I just made her a cake and made cake for my family. We got a couple of hand-me-down books and 1 toy from her cousin. She may have gotten something from my husband's family, but we actually didn't get a chance to go see them because we've been sick. So, and they do like all of his nieces and nephews and his brother were all born like in October and November. So they do like one big like birthday celebration And so since my daughter was born in October, she now gets to join that birthday celebration. So when we go for that, she might get her gifts then, since we didn't go visit for her birthday. We did end up spending from this fund, but it wasn't for party stuff. This was a hospital bill from her birth. We ended up spending $655.04. I mentioned that when I got this bill, I wasn't quite sure if it was legitimate, so I'll just go into all of that right here. When she was born, we put her on my husband's insurance. And so the hospital billed everything to my insurance because it's standard to bill the mother's insurance. But because she wasn't added to my insurance, everything got denied. The other thing was when she was born, we didn't give her a name right away. And so when the hospital submitted everything to the insurance, to my husband's insurance for the first time, they submitted it under baby girl. And his insurance provider's like, we don't have anyone named baby girl. So they denied everything again. And so I had to resubmit with her actual name that matched the health insurance. And so the hospital had sent me a bill for the full amount, and I was on the phone with them, and they were like, oh, no, you don't have to pay the full amount, it's just this amount. And so they didn't send me a actual bill for that smaller amount, and so I paid it. And so when they sent me this other bill that was almost the exact same smaller amount, I thought that, oh, that was the bill that I already paid. So I had to call the hospital and ask them to send me like actual bills of everything. And so they finally got around to that, and it showed that the one that I had paid was all of the doctor's fees, and the one that they just billed me for was the hospital fees, like the room and stuff. So that's the long story. That's finally paid. Hopefully that should be everything. Finally. I thought we were done, but now hopefully we finally are. So moving on to clothing and personal, we budgeted $5, contributed $5, didn't spend anything. I didn't get a chance to, go out and shop or anything, so that's always a good thing. For health, we budgeted $5 and contributed $5. At the beginning of the month, we had received one reimbursement, and by the end of the month, we had made more purchases, got some reimbursements, and then in the end, it equaled to a reimbursement of $8.51. We still have more reimbursements, as I mentioned, that we will be submitting. So it's kind of confusing, and I don't know that I'll continue with doing it this way next year. Mostly because I don't think I'll continue with doing the FSA next year. But all of the purchases get recorded under health up until I get them reimbursed, and then I take it out of the health by recording a negative, and then make a positive expense into FSA. Very confusing. As I said, I don't know that I'll do it again the same way next year. It's too complicated and hard to keep track of. So for travel and entertainment, we budgeted $15, contributed $15, and didn't spend any. I don't know that there's any more trips this year. Maybe we'll take a vacation next year, and so it will be good to have that sinking fund nice and built up for that. For phone, I pay for this annually, which is why I have a sinking fund for it. We budgeted $55, contributed $55, and haven't spent any because that's going to be spent next August or whatever. And then for miscellaneous, we'll put the remaining $2.57 to make our budget zero because we do a zero-based budget. And we spend zero in that category. We haven't spent anything in that category all year long because usually everything fits under a sinking fund. So that was a recap on my October budget. We spent a lot on health and groceries this month. Hopefully in November we'll get a break from these colds. But with my daughter in daycare, who knows? Let me know in the comments how your October went and what you're looking forward to in November. If you're interested in seeing more of my family's journey towards financial independence while we work towards paying off our debts and saving up for retirement, then please hit subscribe because I would love to have you follow along. Thank you for being here.